Hello and welcome to Theology on Tap. It is raining outside here in Los Angeles, so it's a wonderful thing. There's a story in the Bible when Jesus compares himself to the staff of Moses. The staff of Moses, we hear the story in the Old Testament. When the Israelites were going through the desert for 40 years, when they do something wrong, God would punish them. And one way that God punished them is that he would send snakes, serpents. And if you got bitten by one of these, then you would die. And so, of course, there's a lot of fear and people don't want to die. So they cry out to God. And God, and I don't know why he does this. Because if I was God, let's say, and I wanted to teach a lesson, and I send a snake to threaten them with murder, and if they cry out to me, I would think the best thing to deal with it, best way to deal with it, would just take the snakes away, the serpents, just take them away. But that's not what God does. What God does is tell Moses to build an image, right, of snake, out of all things, of serpent, and put it on the staff of Moses, and put it in a place where people could get to. So if they get bitten by the snake, and if you just look at this staff, a bronze snake, you will be healed. So instead of taking the serpent away, he makes an image. And I always thought it was strange because one of the things of the Ten Commandments is that do not worship an idol or to look upon a grave image. But God tells him to make an image. So doesn't make that much sense to me with that. So if you have a better understanding of why God would do that, please let me know. However, Jesus compares himself with the staff of Moses. So what does that mean? Simply put, that if you were to look upon Jesus, to have put your faith in him, then you shall be healed from whatever grievances or sufferings or tribulation that you might be going through. But ultimately, it's the salvation of man from hell to heaven. That's just the simplest way of looking at it. But if you look deeply into it, I read an article few months ago about this Jewish Christian's writing. Basically is this: the reason why God wanted to make an image of a snake out of all things, of serpent, is because it's kind of like a doctor, right? God, let's say God is a doctor, and you went to see a doctor with a tumor. The only way to take the tumor out is to cut through your skin, take out the tumor, and put bandages or stitches on top of it for it to heal. Meaning the pain itself was brought by the healer. Right? So the understanding is God is responsible for bringing the serpent. Right? It's not the devil. It's not Satan. It's not the evil, but it was God that brought out the serpent. And it is the image of that serpent that brought the healing. So it's one and the same. So it's not so much like heaven, hell. It's not good angels versus demons. It's not Jesus versus Satan kind of stuff. But it is God. God is responsible for it. For the pain as well as the healing. Right? It kind of makes sense. So it's not dualism at all. Is that through the pains of life, you could say, that healing is brought forward. From the depth of hell comes salvation. Through the sufferings we learn. And goodness, right? Goodness comes out from evil. Right? So that's the way you should look at it. And I think it's brilliant because you're not really blaming anyone. Right? Because ultimately God is responsible. You can't blame God for what he does. And comparing himself with the staff of Moses, it's kind of like to me, if I think about it in that sense, it's kind of like when you look at book of Genesis with Adam and Eve, we see that the serpent came to Adam and Eve to tempt them in order to get them to eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That we always looked at that serpent as Satan, and that is evil, and it's against God because Satan's goal is to destroy our lives. But ultimately, it is God that sends the serpent. So in a way, you could look at it and say that God purposed for man to fall in order for Jesus, right, who is like the staff of Moses, like the serpent, that comes to bring salvation, right? So it's not dualism, but God is ultimately in control. And I kind of like that because you don't have to blame anyone. That hard times in life is not to be looked upon as curse from God, even though it is brought by God, that it is an opportunity for the healings to take place. So if you remember when I think the disciples came up to Jesus, when they came upon a man who could not see, he was blind. I think he was blind, or he couldn't hear, one or the other, or he was invalid. I forgot which kind. Anyway, so the disciples asked Jesus, why was this man born this way with his ailment? Was it because of his sin, or was it because of the sin of the Father? And remember what Jesus said. He said, no, it's none of those things. It's not because of sin. It's not because his Father's sin, but it is so that the healing could come through Jesus Christ, so that people would worship Jesus Christ, to believe in Jesus Christ. To me, that's awesome. So if I were to look at my life and ask a lot of times, when I was growing up, I said, why me? Why this? How come this happened? And why do I have to go through this? Why do I have to do this? The answer is, so that the name of Jesus Christ shall be praised. I like that. Because a lot of times we just blame everyone else. So instead of blaming anyone else, putting fault on anybody else, look at it as an opportunity to grow, to be a blessing to the world. I think that's wonderful to be done. To be done. And in a final note, you remember what happened to the staff of Moses. And I don't know if this is what the Bible meant or Jesus meant, but I'm just thinking out loud. Remember the staff of Moses, it brought healing. However, they continued the Israelite, to look upon the staff of Jesus Christ, of Moses, the staff of Moses, as an idol, and start worshiping it, in which God later on punishes them for that as well. Now, how does that apply to Jesus Christ? Well, I'm just thinking out loud here, but maybe it's the same way. That now that Jesus Christ has died on the cross, he was dead, buried, but he was resurrected, right? That's why when you look at the cross, Jesus is not on there anymore, right? He was like this staff of Moses, but we should put that staff down. It's not the Jesus that's hanging on the cross that we worship, all right? It is the one that is resurrected that worship. And he said that he had to go to the Father, and he had to do it for what? For the sake of the Spirit of God could come dwell in us to lead and guide us each and every day. So we're not looking at an image. We're not looking at the history of what Christ has done in order to lead and guide us, but it is the living God that dwells in us, Jesus that dwells in us, that leads and guides us. I mean, that's what I get out of that as well, right? But I think it's a very important lesson, because I think a lot of times when I was growing up, I was taught that, Satan's against us. We had the devil. We have to always fight and fight and fight against them, because this whole, we're Christians, and there's everyone else who is not Christians. They're coming out to destroy our lives. So we have an ally, right? And we have enemies, and we have to fight the enemies, and we have to fight in order for blessings to come, and things. And something goes wrong, is always like, oh, because of your sin, you're suffering. Maybe it is not. Maybe we suffer so that in a time of healing and growth, the purpose of it is so that Jesus Christ's name will be recognized, and so that he shall be praised. I think that's a better way of looking at it, don't you? Well, that's it for today. God bless you. I was just thinking about that today for some reason. God bless you, and I will see you next time.